Welcome back to Takeout Political Panel Time. Let me introduce you, Democratic strategist, CBS News political contributor Chuck Rocha, Republican strategist, former communications director for the House Foreign Affairs Committee, Leslie Shedd. Leslie, let me talk to you because you just got back from Ukraine. You were there for a week.
Yep.
What'd you see? What'd you hear?
We went everywhere, honestly. We went all the way out to the east. We went into the Donbass to a place called Pavlograd. We got to meet with some air assault brigades there. We came back. We had a really substantive meeting with President Zelensky. We got to meet with the foreign minister. And my big takeaway from all of this is that Ukraine is winning, and Ukraine is doing some very cool things with drones, with weapons. The United States really should get in the business of this. It is like a giant laboratory there.
And it can teach us to do things we need to learn in pretty quick.
Absolutely. I mean, you've got some American companies that are there. We met with Shield AI, and they are having some really great success, especially providing overflights. So they send their drones in to kind of see what's going on the battlefield to help as some of the, assault drones will go in. But an interesting fact that I learned is that when you look at the front lines, there's about 7 times as many Russian troops on the front lines there, but that they are dying at a rate of 6 times faster than Ukrainians. And it is because Ukrainians have figured out a way to use technology to replace human beings. So they are able to go in using nothing but drones from far away and make huge gains against the Russians.
That's fantastic stuff. Chuck, I want to talk to you about Michigan. Senate primary, Abdul El-Sayed and Haley Stevens running against each other, one a perceived moderate, one a perceived progressive. That's what they call themselves. That's how they position themselves. How big of a race is this to understand the Democratic Party writ large in this election cycle?
I think it shows that there's a lot of anxiety amongst the electorate. We have to separate things here, and I know you have to get into the weeds on the politics here, is a Democratic primary is somewhat of a reflection of the general, but it's a regular general or an off-year general. And what I'm getting at that for all of you at home is that in an off-year election, there's such a smaller group of people that vote. And so in a primary, there's even a smaller group of people. And right now, to your point, the Democratic Party is trying to figure out which part of the Democratic Party is going to actually win this. In New York, you saw some outcomes, and in California. But what will be reflective when we get to November? That's what the overall party is looking at, when about 60% of Democrats who don't participate at all in the primaries will show up to vote in a general election. We don't know yet.
And when those in the Democratic Party say Abdul El-Sayed is simply too liberal or too progressive for Michigan, what are they actually saying?
Folks, look, I work for Bernie Sanders, and I'll say this.
That's what I mean, because you've heard this before. Right. You've heard this before.
They said the same thing about Donald Trump. Guess who's in the White House right now? Donald Trump.
Because energy matters.
Absolutely. And Donald Trump, and I give him credit for this as a Democrat, is that he got a lot of people who normally don't vote to show up in a regular election and on the general. That's part of the problem with Republicans right now, is they're trying to figure out that energy to get those folks back to vote in the midterm. It's just math in these things, and I'll promise you, El-Sayed is not too progressive to win in November.
You believe that?
I truly believe that. But okay. I think it's a good year for Democrats, because somebody's doing something great.
Leslie, I have a good friend. I know you know him. I know you know him too, Chuck, Ron Brownstein. He's a great writer. He's very deep in the numbers. And he wrote a column that I read today. Talks about something that the Democrats have yet to have done in this cycle that they did in 2018. Let me read it to you. 2018, the share of voters who disapproved of Trump's performance was about 10 points larger than the share who approved. Today, Trump's net approval rating is 20 points negative, twice as negative as it was. And yet the Democratic lead of the generic ballot in 2026 is smaller than the party's advantage in 2018 when it was 8.5%, meaning there are lots more people who are dissatisfied, but less than 2018 that Democrats have persuaded to come in their direction. This appears to be right now a structural issue for the Democrats and a possible thin silver lining for Republicans.
I mean, I think it's a big silver lining for us. Like you said, you're talking about a 5-point difference in the generic ballot, and that is huge. I think some of this has to do with the candidates that they're selecting, and not necessarily in those states, right? But rather when people see the type of candidates that are winning in some of these New York congressional races, for example, it turns them away from the Democratic Party. It brings them back to this idea of, the woke policy that scared people off in 2024. They're just not going to like that. I also think, too, that there are a lot of Democrats, not all of them certainly, but a lot of them that don't seem to have a policy platform other than we hate Donald Trump. And so they're not necessarily providing voters a list of things that they are for, a list of things that they're going to do for them. They're just saying, we're not going to be Donald Trump. And I don't think that's going to be enough.
Chuck, I know you want to jump in, and you have and are living through real-world experience with one of those who you were working for in Texas, James Tallarico. If this is true, this is something he needs to solve in Texas, and Democrats need to address.
Republicans have been in charge in D.C. right now of all branches of our government. And in Texas, they've been in charge for 31 years. Right now, there's an anti-incumbency going on with both parties, but really with Republicans, they've been in charge. And guess what? I give them credit. I'm one of the few Democrats who do. When you win elections, you got to fix some things. And people really are hurting right now. And it's easy for a Democrat to say, oh, it's Donald Trump's point, to my friend's point there. But it's harder now to say, I've got a vision.
You don't disbelieve this data that Ron Brownstein's talking about. Trump is more unpopular, and yet Democrats have yet to translate it affirmatively for them.
We're working in congressional races from the East Coast to the West Coast, and every marginal seat in America, and it's backed up with these numbers. There's anxiety. They want to vote for Democrats. They're going to vote for Democrats. At what level yet? We still have yet to be determined because we have a long way till Election Day.
Leslie, you get the last word.
I mean, I know what Chuck is saying here. I just think that at the end of the day, the American people want something to be for too. They can't just be against something. And I think that a lot of these socialist and in some instances self-proclaimed communist candidates are scaring people away from the Democratic Party. And it's reminding them of the woke policies of 2024 they didn't like.
It will be interesting to see if one local candidate in one particular jurisdiction can scare an entire national electorate. We'll see. Chuck Rocha, Leslie Shedd, great to have you here.